Tonight, we dive deep into the alleyways of East London, alleyways soaked in crimson, in deep ruby. It is 1888, but tonight, 137 years later, we talk about the famous of all London true crimes, the one, the only, Jack the Ripper. Welcome. I go by DJ Lawson. This is the most ghetto, underfunded, underpaid YouTube channel. Thank you for everybody for all the love in my last video. I'm seriously, like, we got no editors for this. This is me doing it in one take. I'm literally doing all the sound effects as well. For example, cue the music. If you hear a dog barking in the background, totally sound effects, not my dog barking at some cats. It is 1888, East London, Whitechapel district. For those who don't know, Whitechapel, truly a lovely place. Waterfront properties, no, not really. It was broke town. Ghetto is an understatement. You think living with roaches and rats was a deal? Heck no, that was luxury for them. There was 10,000 people per building, per square block. It was overcrowded, underpaid. It was filled with disease, crime, women of the night. But in this particular area of Whitechapel, something would happen that would leave its residents shocked for the first time. You see, Whitechapel was used to crime. It was used to police not showing up, especially when there was an unaliving or two. But these, known as the Canonical Five, would get everybody up in an uproar. And 137 years later, to this day, it still has not been solved. So, grab a cafecito, grab some hot Cheetos, some Takis, a drink, put us on the side. Use us as background noise. If you use us to fall asleep, shout out to all the insomniacs. I see you, but just do us a massive favor. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, turn on the notifications so you're notified when we post. It definitely helps out the channel. And let's get into the story, the true crime of Jack the Ripper. First and foremost, let us introduce to you the Canonical Five. The Canonical Five is what historians agree that they were the first 5 victims of Jack the Ripper. Canonically meaning back to back. So, the first one that we will get into is a woman by the name of Mary Ann Nichols. Now, Mary Ann Nichols was also known as Polly. You see, back when you were working as a woman of the night, you would use a fake name. Now, a woman of the night was somebody that with a little bit of coin, you can have some company for the end of the night or nights. Or like my uncle would do, have a whole nother family and suddenly they appear at a family reunion or at grandma's funeral. Mary Ann Nichols, one of the first of the Canonical Five. This happened August 31st, 1888. She was known as Polly and unfortunately would be found unalived at 3:40 a.m. in the middle of the night. Mary Ann and her body was discovered on Bucks Row, a very famous area in East London in Whitechapel district where you could pay for a woman of the night. Unfortunately, what the crowd of people that surrounded her body and then police discovered was Mary Ann Nichols, Polly's throat had been fully and her entire abdomen had been mutilated. Whoever had done this atrocity had sneaked off into the night, nowhere to be found. When police arrived, there were so many people around, it had destroyed whatever little evidence was left behind. Want to just give you guys a quick heads up. This was 80 years before modern fingerprints were even used as actual evidence. We were way behind in modern policing. No DNA evidence, nothing. The public was horrified, and the police unfortunately assumed that it was just another East End unaliving. But it would be the second of the Canonical Five that would get everybody, including the police and special investigators, in an uproar. The second of the Canonical Five, we meet Annie Chapman. On September 8th of 1888, just 8 days later of the unaliving of Mary Ann Nichols, there was another unaliving. Her body, Annie Chapman's, was discovered in a backyard in Hanbury Street, another street famous for women of the night. But what investigators found weird was it was in a backyard. The unaliver was getting bold. This was no ordinary unaliving. This was somebody who was escalating, who was learning. And what they found was horrendous. Her throat and her womb fully removed. Next, just 22 days later, on September 30th, 1888, the known double event would occur. This is from a woman named Elizabeth Stride, who was unfortunately found by police and the public with her throat and no further mutilation of her body. The public and the special investigators discovered that who had ever done this was most likely interrupted, whether it was by some bystander, by an animal, another woman of the night, but they can confirm that they were fully interrupted because another unaliving would happen, hence the name, the double event. Catherine Eddowes, 45 minutes later, the same night, found in Mitre Square, or Mitre Square, I don't know how to say it, another area where women of the night would peruse. Catherine was brutally mutilated. Her face, organs fully removed, a piece of her apron was discovered nearby, and there was a message scratched in chalk. It says, "The jewels of the men that will not be blamed for nothing." Now, the writing was erased before it can get photographed. Again, there was public going around. People were trying to see what they could find. And unfortunately, it was a case of destroyed evidence. Next, Mary Jane Kelly, the fifth of the canonical five. This will not take place until November 9th of 1888. Unfortunately, with all the time in between the fourth and the fifth, whoever it was got more bold and more atrocious, because this one is the most horrifying of them all. You see, Mary Jane was unalived indoors. Her room was locked from the inside. Her body fully mutilated beyond recognition. Organs removed, body fully flayed. It was personal, obsessive. If the Ripper, which is now the name that was given to the person committing these atrocities, had a final statement, this one was definitely it. Now, let's pause. Who is the Ripper? Jack the Ripper? Jane the Ripper? Well, here's what we kind of know from the evidence that was discovered and was able to be salvaged from the canonical five. Number one, they're saying it was likely a male between the ages of 25 and 35 years old. The most common conspiracy theory going around is that this might have been a Jane the Ripper, a female Ripper, but most of the evidence, and between forensics and what we have available now, 137 years later, it's more likely pointing that it was indeed a male. Again, 25 to 35 years old. They were white, of lower or middle class. They had knowledge of anatomy, possibly could be a butcher, a doctor, or a mortuary's assistant. Now, being that they were lower or middle class, either a butcher or a mortuary assistant is more likely, as a doctor would actually put them out of the middle class or lower class, as doctors made a good living, especially out in Whitechapel. Now, they had to be familiar with the area, so it was a resident of Whitechapel. They were socially isolated, introverted, and they must have been possibly living near the crime scene. We know that because of the double event and because of the canonical five's proximity to each other. Now, the brutality and precision of the cuts, especially the organ removal, led many to believe that he has to have some sort of medical knowledge, hence where the theory that they were probably a doctor. But again, we come into conflict with its status, a white male of lower or middle class. Now, it could have been someone that more likely worked with the dead, like a mortuary's assistant. But some suggest that he kept trophies, like a collector of sorts, because of the organs that were removed with precision. And what would follow after the canonical five were very disturbing letters, some even saying that the police were claiming that Jack the Ripper had eaten some of the body parts and not collected them. Cannibalism or just a hoax? We'll never know. Next, those dozens of letters that were sent to police, newspapers, and even the detectives, but 3 letters in particular of the dozens who were sent stand out. The first one, the Dear Boss letter, dated September 25th, 1888. This letter was the first to use the name Jack the Ripper. The letter read, "I am down on whores and I shan't quit ripping them till I do get buckled." Police originally thought it was a hoax. Soon after, they received the second of the letters. This was known as the Saucy Jackie postcard. It was received soon after the double event. It referenced the double event in the postcard in itself before the details were public. Coincidence or an insider? The third is the From Hell letter. This is probably the most famous of all the letters because it was received by George Lusk. It included a human kidney. I know. The writer claimed to have eaten the other half, hence where people started assuming that Jack the Ripper was not collecting, but rather cannibalizing them. This letter is the most chilling and possibly real, but none were definitely proven authentic to this day. Now, let's get into the suspects. Who did it? Why did they do it? The first one, now many debate this, but Montague John Jewett. He was a barrister and a teacher. He committed an unaliving of himself in the Thames weeks after the final unaliving. Some believe he fit the profile and unalived himself out of the guilt. Number 2, Aaron Kosminski. This is the one who I think has done it because I actually did a TikTok video about this person that they're saying that he was the one that they had discovered many years ago thanks to a shawl and because they were actually put on a famous wax museum as the actual Jack the Ripper. But that's another story for another time. Aaron Kosminski, who was a Polish immigrant and a barber. He was institutionalized and suspected by several officers. You see, Kosminski in 2014, a controversial DNA test actually linked him from the shawl that I spoke earlier about from one of the victims. But the evidence to this day is still very heavily disputed. Some people even call the shawl of deception. Next, Prince Albert Victor. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we have royal drama for your mama. Royalty, this is a fringe theory. It suggests that a prince, Queen Victoria's grandson, was involved either directly or via cover-up. Most historians, though, do reject this theory because normally you wouldn't see a prince around those areas. They would just take them to the prince, their royalty in the end of it. So it doesn't really fit. However, the fourth one, Walter Sickert. Walter was an artist obsessed with the Ripper case. I mean, fully loco about it. Author Patricia Cornwell famously accused him of spending millions on research, but the timeline doesn't quite add up. Next, we have a Dr. Thomas Neil Cream, the only doctor suspected and one who has a very strong connection because it would put him in the profile of a white male of middle or higher class because they are a doctor with knowledge of human anatomy. They also were convicting the doctor of poisoning before being hanged publicly. He allegedly said, "I am Jack the," and that's when they hung him before he can get the word out. But he was in prison, unfortunately, during the unaliving, so there was really no other way where he could escape prison, commit the unalivings, and go right back into it. So, debunked there. To this day, 137 years later, the legacy and why Jack still haunt us. Jack the Ripper didn't just unalive women, he unalived the peace. You see, as it was in East London, in Whitechapel, no matter how crime-filled it was or how packed it was, there was always moments of peace. But now with Jack the Ripper on the loose and no one fitting the suspect list or description, Jack the Ripper for 137 years would remain at large, with women of the night fearing for their lives, sticking in bunches and groups to protect themselves from any future Jack the Ripper unalivings. Now, this was the first of the world's media virality serial unaliver. I mean, 137 years ago was such a long time. He takes the cake as being the first. The press ran wild, and to this day, they still do. If there's any other updates when it comes to DNA evidence, like what happened in 2014 with the shawl with Aaron Kosminski, I mean, the entirety of all news sites around the world take it and gobble it up. I mean, there has been people who carried the torches. They formed vigilante groups. There's been so many attempts to unearth Jack the Ripper to this day. Jack the Ripper changed the way we think about policing techniques and crime, from blocking off crime scenes to using fingerprints, DNA evidence, and just overall better use of police techniques. He inspired books, films entire subcultures of true crime fascination, my channel included, and to this day, he remains unknown. So, who was Jack the Ripper? A madman, a doctor, a ghost in the fog? We may never know. Don't forget to leave a comment down below letting us know who you think did it. Was it Jewett? Was it Kosminski? Was it the doctor? Who do you think did it? What is your theory? Let us know. Put some spooky emojis in the chat as well. May the 5 souls of the canonical 5 one day find true peace, because 137 years later, the good people of planet Earth are still fighting to find the identity of Jack the Ripper. Thank you for watching the video to the very end. Again, make sure to hit the like, the subscribe, the notifications, and make sure you're up to date. Super fun to tell these stories. I appreciate y'all. Thank you again for the love in the La Llorona video in the last one. So thank you guys so much. Make sure to hit the share as well. Share it to your group chat. And I go by DJ Lawson. Welcome to the most ghetto, underfunded, underpaid YouTube channel about true crime, spooky stories, cheese man, everything above. Thank you. I'll see you guys in the next one. I love you. Bye.